is the last call for the field trip. I am missing. Report to the front desk or have your teacher call the front desk now.
Hi. I just walked a bunch in the Florida heat. We're doing this while I eat my lunch because I have very limited time right now. And also, I need to talk about what I've been reading recently, and this is the only time I have that's not interrupted by children. Today's beverage is brought to you by Ardor Energy Sparkling Water Cucumber Mint. Not bad. What I've read for 2025. So here's the thing that I have to talk to you about. 2025, I have read 9 books, which is a low amount for me. I wish it were more. And it's mainly because I've been working on a musical for the first 3 months of the year. I haven't had like as much time to read / energy. Really, it's like energy. I've had time to read. I just haven't really had the mental energy to be able to sit down and read a book until recently. Additionally, the first book that I started reading this year was not a book that I was able to finish, and it was not a book that I was able to get into, like literally at all, and I feel absolutely terrible for it. But we've got to talk about all of that. So let me open up my notes and let's talk about my hiatus reading. I'm gonna start with the books that I DNF'd because there's only 2 books that I DNF'd this year. Okay, technically we're not talking about this year. Technically we're talking about November, December, January, February, March, April. Okay, we're gonna talk about the books that I DNF'd between November and today. The 2 books that I have DNF'd, the first one is Flock by Kate Stewart. And I'm pretty sure I have read a Kate Stewart book before, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. I really did not like Flock. I gotta be honest, this book is all vibes and almost no plot. I got through about 30% of the book, and I really was just wondering when something interesting was gonna happen. You know, a lot of people like this book. I know a friend of mine was really excited that I was reading it and was excited to talk about it with me, and I unfortunately had to like shut her down. I did not like Flock, and I had to DNF it because it was just so boring for me. It's a romance book about a girl who gets involved with this group of like this almost like cultish gang type group, and she has like a love interest with one of the guys, but also she's got some interesting sexual tension with another guy. And that's as far as I got in the book, and I got a third of the way through, and that was really all that I learned. I learned that her dad was a complete POS and he was treating her like crap, which kind of goes along with why she was interested in the one guy in the gang. Makes complete sense. There was something else, I feel like, that was supposed to happen, like to this group of guys that may have been more interesting and plot invested, but the first third of the book was nothing at all. There was no plot. I just was so bored. I really wanted something more interesting to happen than just people making eyes at each other for 50 pages, okay? I needed something else. If you liked it, I'm sure you liked it for all of the right reasons. If you have the same feelings as me though, please feel free to share them, because I feel like I'm alone in my feelings about Flock. I definitely have no intention of picking up the rest of the series or going back to this book. I'm not interested. The other book that I DNF'd this year in 2025, and I started it at the start of the year, and I'm really, really disappointed that I just did not get as into this book as I was hoping, and that is Gideon the Ninth. I got this book because another YouTuber, Carrie Can Read, on her channel recommended Gideon the Ninth, the whole series. I know she really liked it. It sounded like it was right up my alley. And she also kind of compared it to the Murderbot series, which I've absolutely loved, and I'm going to talk about in a second. So I was like, okay, this sounds like I could get into it. And it took me 3 months to get that far. I'm not a slow reader by any stretch of the imagination. This was just me struggling to pick this up and read it. I don't think it's a bad book. Interesting.
Please pardon this interruption.
Take a drink.
This is the last call for the kids going on the field trip. We need you in the courtyard now. Last call.
Interested in like the whole drama that was going on with like the families and connections and like mystery and like what's killing them. I was curious, but I was not motivated. I was not focused while reading this book. I was not feeling it at all, and it made me depressed. It made me depressed when it came to reading. I really want to, so I think I still want to read this book. I still want to read this series. It's not bad. It's like, again, like this is, it's not that I have the same feelings about this book that I had about Flock. I have a very strong interest in this book, but I could not read it for the first part of this year. While I was working on the musical, my brain was not at all in this book. Every time I picked it up, every time I tried to listen to the audiobook, my brain was somewhere else. And I feel really bad. I honestly, if it made me feel bad that I didn't want to read it. And so I put it down because I was like, I cannot pretend to read this and pretend like I'm having a good time, because I felt like I was just gonna read the rest out of spite and it was gonna make me mad. I do think a little bit that the writing is a little, what's the word? Very detailed. It's very intricate. There's a lot of little subtle jokes. And there are things in here that are just kind of like for funsies. It's very much a fun book. The writing is very fun and whimsical. I don't know. I just could not get into it. And so I DNF'd it and I stopped that far in. That's almost 60% through the book. I want to pick this up and I want to finish it. I absolutely do. I need to get to a headspace though where I can do that. The books that I actually read, that I finished from November to April, we're gonna start with the first book that I read in November, which was our book club pick that the book club never actually continued. We just read one book and we never actually met to talk about it. We read The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I read this in combination with the audio, and I really enjoyed this book. This I read in November. So like saying that I didn't have the mental space for Gideon the Ninth, I had the mental space in November for Donna Tartt's A Secret History. And also I was really curious about like the whole vibe of the book. I liked the idea of following this kid into college and him meeting these other scholars who were kind of doing some interesting weird things, and they're all very rich. I took a lot of notes, and obviously I don't want to give anything away, but there is a mystery, a murder, dark things go down, and it's interesting. Again, this in comparison to the things that I DNF'd, I feel like I would hate this, but I actually didn't. I actually really enjoyed it. Definitely quintessential dark academia, which is probably why I liked it. I really want to talk about it with my book club. Will it ever happen? Who knows? The other book that I read in November and December, were a series actually. We're going to talk about the Murderbot series for a second because, oh my gosh, I love this series. I think there's like 7 or 8 books in the series. They're like all super short. We are following a robot human construct. So it's a robot that has been constructed from human parts and is supposed to be a security robot for a company. In the very first book, we learn that the robot is able to override its governor module, which is basically the thing that makes it follow the rules, and it deletes it. It's like, no, I don't have that anymore. They figure out how to follow their own rules in the first book. They want to continue to follow their prime objective, which is to protect humans. And also wants to watch TV shows and read books when it's not protecting humans. That just immediately made the Murderbot so relatable. I was like, yeah, we all want to do that. We all just want to do a job and then go home and watch TV. Like, that's literally what I want to do with my life. Okay, there is nothing wrong with it. The whole series follows them as they experience life as a human robot construct, and it interacts with other robots or AI. It's funny and heartfelt and like such a fun little tale. And all of the books kind of go off on their own little adventures. Some of them start to connect toward the end, but they're very short. They're very fun. I cannot say any more about this series. If you have not read Murderbot yet and what I've just described to you sounds good, definitely pick it up. The audiobooks are like 3 to 5 hours long. I love the Murderbot series, and I finished the entire series in 2 months because I loved it so much. The other book that I read in November was Educated by Tara Westover. This is one of the books that was on my shelf that I picked up because I was like, I can listen to the audiobook and also I can move it off of Mount TBR. And I did, and I'm so glad that I did. My aunt gave this to me, recommended it to me, and I think I ended up buying it at Barnes & Noble. But it's a nonfiction book that follows Tara Westover, who is a former member of a Mormon family. And I say former member because she left her family to go to college against her father's and family's wishes. And because of her education, was able to learn about the world and experience new things, and kind of realized that the way that she grew up was extremely dangerous and not conducive to learning about the world. When she was able to go out into the world, she was able to unlearn a lot of the things that she learned when she was younger. But the things that she learned when she was younger were also very relevant to her life going to college and growing up and becoming an adult. And it's also talking about her experience going back to her family and trying to reconcile the love that she has for her father and her mother and her brothers, while also recognizing that they are toxic. It's a toxic atmosphere, and it was not good for her to be around them, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. Hugely readable. Like, if you don't read nonfiction and you want to like try to get nonfiction into your life more, this is a great book to read. This book is hugely readable. Following Tara's life is incredibly gut-wrenching and like scary, and there were moments where I was literally like gripping the steering wheel while listening to it, or like gritting my teeth, or like squinting, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to look, but like also incredibly readable. The way that Tara writes is a very gripping story, and heartfelt and meaningful and relatable, and made me feel connected to her in a lot of ways. This came out at the same time as a round of J.D. Vance's memoir, A Hillbilly Elegy, and I saw a lot of people comparing this to that. If you didn't know what my political stance was, you probably do now. I think this was better. I think this was a better book. The message behind this was a little bit better. I think that the handling of the story and the Mormon faith was much better. The message that she gives about this side of the country was also better. So highly, highly recommend. Again, especially if you don't read memoirs or nonfiction and you want to get into it, this is a very, very, very readable book. The next book that I read was also nonfiction, again, on my shelf, that I tried to get off before the end of the year. This book is called The High Price of Materialism by Tim Kasser. You could probably read a couple of essays from this book and still get the overall gist of what he's trying to say, especially in connection with Alfie Kohn's Punished by Rewards. I feel like this has a lot of the same notes and philosophical elements that book talks about. This is basically talking about how our need to fill our lives up with stuff and seem like we are, rich and have a lot of, important things in our lives, and how that signifies to other people about our identity, and how that's actually very toxic to our lives. People who do focus on material things are a lot less happy than people who don't, which is kind of like a big duh, okay? But the science behind it is there. The studies behind it are in this book and do connect a lot to, I think, today when it comes to what we do online, how we consume media through social media, through the internet, through TikTok, through YouTube. I think that there's something to be said, especially when it comes to the book community. I've watched a lot of videos in the last couple years with people buying brand new spanking books and keeping them or not keeping them, and kind of like what that signifies to other people who are in the book community, and what it means to have a lot of books, or just a lot of things, and how we can present ourselves as happy when we have these things, but also how we might not be as happy as we think we are, how we might not be filling up the cups that we need to fill up when we're doing these things. So it was definitely a wake-up call for me to be more mindful about how I'm approaching things when I go shopping, when I want something, or when I'm collecting things, right? Just like being more aware of what's important in my life rather than the material things in my life that I care about, if that makes sense. Another really good nonfiction book. There's more I could talk about with this book, but I don't have time. So let's go on. I started out 2025 with a book I read, This Is How You Lose the Time War. I listened to it on audio and went back to the book. This is, again, a very short book, so it was very easy to read. And I found myself getting really into this, especially because of the poetic writing and very whimsical elements that are happening. We're following two agents of opposing sides in a science fictional time war. It's a very ethereal concept, and because of that, the writing is very ethereal. If you were going into this book thinking that there was going to be like a solid set, like black and white, these are the boundaries in which they act, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get the set scientific system in which they operate. You are really just more getting the connection that the two agents have with each other and how they are able to find each other in time and what they're doing. I liked it. I liked the very wistful, whimsical feeling of these two characters going back and forth and writing letters to each other. I really enjoyed it. So if you like that, if you're more of a creative writing, poetry, if you're into that, this is a good book. And it's kind of science fiction. I read books 5 and 6 in the Invisible Library series, which were The Mortal World and The Secret Chapter. I picked these books up specifically because I was so depressed about not liking Gideon the Ninth that I was like, I need to read a book that I am craving to read right now, which was the Invisible Library series. I love this series. I was introduced to it a couple of years ago. Absolutely love it. Genevieve Cogman is so much fun to read. It's not like they're reinventing the wheel, all right? But it's good. It's gripping. It's interesting. It's funny. It's like, you know, a mystery of the day. We are following a woman named Irene Winters. That's her name that she's chosen because she is an agent of a library between worlds. And the goal of the library is to collect books from all of the multiverse and pull them into the library to help balance the battle between order and chaos. The creatures that rule over order are dragons, and the creatures that rule over chaos are fairies. And they are constantly at war with each other, and the library is kind of like in the middle. In the first part of the series, we are introduced to a dragon character who becomes somewhat of a love interest to Irene. I'm not going to give too much away, but I will say that their romance is all fade to black. There are no spicy scenes. There are a couple of like kisses and handholds and yearning glances, but there are absolutely no spicy scenes. These are fun adventure books because Irene is like going off into these worlds and she's interacting with dragons and fairies and all of the things that go along with them and fighting villains and finding books. And so I just love the world. I'm definitely probably going to finish the series this year. I want to. I don't have any of the books on my shelf though, so it doesn't count toward my Mount TBR reading. But I do really enjoy that series, and it is one that I hopefully will finish soon. I read The Knight and the Butcherbird, which is a short story by Alix E. Harrow. I am currently reading one of Alix Harrow's full-length novels. I always recognize when a writer takes time to get into their story, and I feel like Alix Harrow is one of those writers. So I'm giving myself time to get into the book because I feel like it's a little slow. The short story was the same way, The Knight and the Butcherbird. I really loved it. I loved the whole concept of this kind of future world where people transform into monsters and like having these monster killers. Really great story. I think this is the second Harrow short story that I've read. And I really want to continue to read more of her work because I feel like she has this really interesting narrative style that I really, really enjoy. So I'm hoping that I'm really gonna like the next book that I'm reading by her, which is Starling House. I read Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I've heard about this series. A lot of people have been talking about it especially since the third book just came out. I read the first book and I gotta say that I loved it. From the beginning, hits the ground running with the action, right into the story. I was like, yes, this is so good. And then I got halfway through and I started to get really, really bored with the trial scenes. I am not a big combat action book reader. I don't particularly care for action scenes or fight scenes in books, which is probably why I really was turned off by Gideon the Ninth, because there seemed to be a lot of like action scenes that I feel bored by them. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just me. It's the same way when I watch Marvel movies. I totally zone out during the fight scenes. I just am not interested in that part of the story. I don't know why. I've not really self-reflected on that particular aspect of my reading personality, but it was the same thing with Legendborn. I got really bored with the fight scenes, the trial scenes especially. I kind of felt myself reading skimming through some of those passages, because I was just like, okay, like, let's uncover more of the mystery. Let's learn about her magic a little bit more. Like, let's learn about the romance, like the characters. Like, I wanted to get into that, but the ending was so sick. I was like, even though with the combat, like, I was okay, but like the actual plot bomb that drops at the end of that book, I was so for it. Oh my God, I absolutely love it. Seriously great book. We're following a girl who loses her mom in the first chapter, very suddenly, and kind of in a traumatic way, right? She's not able to have closure with her mother, and she ends up going to college, like early admission into college, and she uncovers secrets in the college and learns that she has her own magic similar to the secret society going on at the school. And she meets a guy, there's some love interest that happens, and then there's another guy, and there's a potential for a love triangle. I don't know, don't spoil it for me, because I haven't read the second book yet, but I loved it. Especially that ending, man. That ending scene was so cool. I'm gonna read the next 2 books in the series, for sure. I have to talk about this last book that I just finished a couple days ago, start of May. I just finished All Better Now by Neal Shusterman. I don't have a lot of time, but I have to tell you that I have read 2 Shusterman books before this year. No, in last year. And I was not about them. They did not hit like a normal Neal Shusterman book does. And this one did. It was very much a Neal Shusterman book. Like you definitely felt the vibes of Unwind, of Dry, of Scythe. All of that was in here. It felt like I was coming home to a Neal Shusterman book. But I'm kind of mad. I'm kind of mad about it. This particular dystopian is post-COVID, and there's a new pandemic that arises. And when you recover from this disease, it basically makes you happier. You stop worrying about all of the little things, and you're contented with life, right? Find kind of satisfaction within life. And basically there are 2 types of people who want to catch the disease because they want to feel this contentment, and people who are like, absolutely not, this is going to ruin the world. And so we see, multiple perspectives from both sides. And the ending made me feel like he's going to make it into a series, which I want to scream about, because I don't like that. I don't like that he wants to make this into a series. I think it could be fine as a standalone book. I think a lot of the things that could have been done in this book could have been done with less pages. And I think the whole story could have been told in a lot less time. I liked it though. I did enjoy it. I loved the philosophical discussions that were happening in this book, but I don't really want it to be a series. And it kind of makes me feel like the end of the book is making it into a series. So still, I'm gonna give it a chance. If there is a second book that comes out, I probably will read it. That's all that I read.
No, it is not. It is not all that I have read, because there are 3 more books that I have to talk to you about that I read in May. I had put a whole bunch of library books on hold at the start of the year, and they all came in at once, as library holds tend to do. So I had 2 library books left that I had ordered that I had to read through before they were due at the library. So the first 2 I already talked about, All Better Now and Legendborn. And then the next book that I read was Starling House by Alix Harrow. I really enjoyed that book. I feel like I remember hearing people say that it wasn't that great, and maybe it's not as good as her other work, but I still really enjoyed it. I found it intensely readable. I was really connected with the characters. It's almost a semi-retelling of Beauty and the Beast, along with like a haunted house vibe. Like, it was I found it very whimsical, very fun, very heartwarming. Starling House is about a girl who has dreams about this house, and she can't stop thinking about it. And she ends up going to work there as a cleaning lady, and the guy who lives there is like begrudgingly giving her loads and loads of cash to clean his house, his old, very rundown, but also kind of magical house. And the things that it's sitting on top of and the lore behind it. It's a really fun story. It's a nice little like fairy tale, in my opinion. And it really fit the vibe of Alix E. Harrow that I've gotten from her other work. So I enjoyed it. I liked it. The other book that I read was my final library book, which was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I love R.F. Kuang. I read Babel, loved it. It's probably one of my favorite books of 2024. And I knew that Yellowface was very different from Babel. I went into it kind of thinking that this was like sort of a contemporary literature, but still had the same cultural, philosophical discussions that needed to happen. This was like very much read like contemporary literature in the sense that it was like couldn't just finish one chapter. Like I had to keep reading. All of the drama, all of the little sickly little drama pieces that are involved in the story also had this message of like, this is gross behavior, and why would you want to continue behaving this way online and with other people? You know, it was just kind of like one of those books that made you not only think about what this person has done in the book, but also like what you do online and how it affects other people. Another great writing from R.F. Kuang. I am really, really impressed with her, of all the works that I have read of hers in the past. And I definitely want to go into her backlist this year for sure. That was my last library book. And I was fully intent on going into my TBR that I had planned for my summer reading. And then this happened.
So I plan to read all of these books this summer. All of these books I plan to read in the next 2 months. I plan to read them after I finished my library book, which I just started, and it was the last library book that I had that came in on hold. And I was gonna start on this TBR after I finish this, but I just saw my friend today, and she gave me this. So this is just gonna, I'm just gonna read this.
So I didn't start my TBR until actually yesterday when I started reading Heavenly Tyrant, but I finally got to read Sunrise on the Reaping. So excited that I got to read this book. It's my friend's copy, but she wasn't going to be able to read it until later. And I was like, I have to read it. And it took me about a week to read. It probably wouldn't have taken me as long if I had just sat and read, but I actually had other things that I had to be doing. And this is so much better than Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I enjoyed it a lot more. It was a lot more captivating and interesting. The first 8 chapters felt like spot the difference between this and The Hunger Games, and not in a bad way, in very much a like provoking my nostalgia, but also giving me endorphins for reading new content and new material and understanding more of the lore behind The Hunger Games and the message that she sets up in this that just further boosts and encapsulates The Hunger Games, the original trilogy. So good. So good. Highly recommend, especially if you didn't like Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I don't think you have to read that book to get this book. There are a couple little tiny like hints at that book and President Snow's backstory, but you don't need to know all of the stuff that happens in order to truly appreciate this. In my personal opinion, this was very good. This was very, very good. And that was all that I have read. And that is it. That is officially it. So now I can officially say you are all caught up on my reading. So there you go.
If you read any of these books or have any thoughts, please share them in the comments. I would love to talk to you about it. That's why I'm here, is to talk about books. So yeah, thank you so much for watching on this little lunch break, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.